Good evening and welcome to the July 1st, 2024 regular meeting of the Mayor and Council. First item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'd like to invite Amanda Duncan to the podium to lead us in the pledge. If everyone can please rise.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Amanda. Appreciate that. Next on our agenda is reflection, and as we go into a moment of silence, I would like to call to everyone's attention the sad news that a longtime former member of city staff passed away last week. Wes Burnett, who was our chief code inspector and worked for the city for close to 40 years, passed away at 64 last week. And so we wish his family, his friends, and his former colleagues all the best and our best wishes. So let's have a moment of silence, please. Thank you very much. Next item on our agenda is the approval of minutes, and tonight we have one set of minutes before us from Monday, June 10. What is the pleasure of the council?
Mayor, I move approval of the minutes from the work session held June 10th, 2024.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that carries 4-0. And I will note that Councilmember Henderson is sick. That's why she's not with us this evening. Okay, so next we're going to get into recognitions, proclamations, presentations, and I'd like Maura Dinwiddie to join me at the podium to proclaim Parks and Recreation Month. Thank you. I see that.
very bright lights.
You want to read the back of it?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, cool.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Happy July 1st. Since 1985, America has celebrated July as Parks and Recreation Month, a program of the National Recreation Parks Association. The goal is to raise awareness of the vital aspect that Parks and Recreation has on communities across the U.S. This year's theme is Where You Belong, and it celebrates the many ways parks and recreation professionals across the country foster a sense of belonging in their community by providing welcoming and inclusive programs, essential services for all ages and abilities, and safe, accessible spaces to build meaningful connections. In celebration of Parks and Recreation Month, the city is offering a wide variety of opportunities for health, fitness, and the cultural arts, from skywatching at Observatory Park, Sports Fest at Ford Park, where if you bring your children, you can get really bright shirts, and you will not lose them wherever you go. Storytime Station at the Community Museum, Explore Gaithersburg Park Passport, summer camps, children's concerts in Old Town, evening to Old Town concert series, farmers markets, and more.
You want to introduce your guests?
My guests tonight are my children and avid sports enthusiasts with the city of Gaithersburg, as well as campers with our city programs. This is Alon and Shoshana.
Excellent. Okay, I shall read the proclamation. Proclamation of the Mayor and City Council of Gaithersburg. Whereas parks and recreation programs are an integral part of communities throughout this country, including the city of Gaithersburg. And whereas every day, parks and recreation professionals provide essential services, making their communities better places to live, work, and play. And whereas these programs foster a sense of belonging in the community by providing welcoming and inclusive programs and safe, accessible spaces to build meaningful connections. And whereas parks and recreation programs build healthy, active communities that aid in the prevention of chronic disease, provide therapeutic recreation for those who have differing mental or physical abilities, improve mental and emotional health, and also provide a space for all ages to connect with nature and recreate outdoors. Now, therefore, I, Judd Ashman, by the power vested in me as Mayor of Gaithersburg, do hereby proclaim July 2024 as Parks and Recreation Month in the city of Gaithersburg, and encourage our residents to explore all that the city's parks and recreation programs have to offer for all ages and abilities. Proclaim this first day of July 2024, signed by me. Let's give them a big round of applause.
Thank you.
So our next item is a certificate of recognition to John Schlichting, our Director of Planning and Code Administration, but I do not see John. If John is watching this on TV, waiting for his moment, this is your moment, John. We are going to see where he is, but I wanted to invite the whole council down here anyway. We're going to assume John is here in the building, he's going to show up. So, council members, please join me. I have tributes to him, and I would start reading them, but, you know, just to keep the meeting moving, but he should hear those tributes. It only makes sense. All right. Well, we do have some great parks and recreation programs. We're very proud of our summer camps. Do we have John?
No, he was here. I don't know what happened. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's go back to our seats. We have not found John, and then if he shows up, then we will reconvene at the podium. I guess so. Okay, next item on our agenda is public comments. This is the time the mayor and council would like to hear from anybody who wants to speak on any topic that's not a public hearing. Tonight we do have one public hearing on what I refer to as the Matten property, but it's 715, 725 Progress Way. So if you're here to speak on that, hold off. We're going to get to that next. But if you'd like to speak on anything else, you're welcome to come up to the podium, state your name and address or neighborhood for the record. Speak for up to 3 minutes, and if you have more than 3 minutes worth of material to deliver to us, you can send it to us in writing, and we'll consider it just like oral testimony. Do we have anybody who'd like to testify this evening? Okay, not seeing anybody in the room. Let me just check on Zoom and see if we have anybody. If you're on Zoom, if you're watching on Zoom and would like to testify, use the raise hand function, and I will call on you. And I'm not seeing that either. Okay. All right, well, this meeting's going more efficiently than we expected. Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and start our public hearing. I'm going to invite the planning commissioners up here, and Caroline Seiden to lead us.
I'm just going to leave this up for you guys to... Perfect. I didn't even put an aerial on. Great. That's fine.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. This is joint public hearing on Schematic Development Plan SDP 9759-2024. The subject property is known as Parcel S and is addressed as 725 Progress Way. It is part of the 43.96 acre redevelopment of the former IBM property. The property is currently unimproved and is bounded by Bunsen Place to the northwest, North Frederick Avenue Linear Park, and then North Frederick Avenue to the northeast, 705 Progress Way, which is Chick-fil-A, to the southeast, and Progress Way to the southwest. Vehicular access to the site is from Progress Way. The current SDP application represents the second schematic development plan to implement Sketch Plan SK 8180-2019, which permits up to 650,000 square feet of commercial, employment, and industrial uses. The first schematic development plan, SDP 8597-2020, was approved in 2020, followed by 3 final site plans that implement that SDP. The current application, SDP 9759-2024, proposes to construct 2 buildings with up to 14,750 square feet of retail use at 2 addresses, 715 and 725 Progress Way. Each building is proposed to be located on its own lot, with Lot 7 improved with a 10,100 square foot building and Lot 8 improved with a 4,650 square foot building. The joint public hearing was duly advertised on June 13th and June 20th, 2024 in the Washington Post and has been posted on the city's website since June 7th, 2024. The property was also properly posted with public hearing signs on June 7th, 2024. At the present time, there are 42 exhibits in the record file. They are referenced in an exhibit list in these files. The individual exhibits may be reviewed during the course of the meeting or in the Planning and Code Administration offices during regular business hours at City Hall or on the city's website. Any objections to the receipt of any exhibit should be noted prior to the closing of the record. Otherwise, they will be deemed received in evidence. And I'm going to turn it over to Phil Hummel with Miles and Stockbridge, who is here to represent the applicant.
Thank you, Ms. Seiden. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members and Mr. Chair and commissioners. My name is Philip Hummel of Miles and Stockbridge in Rockville. We are land use counsel to applicant Matten. We have here tonight representatives from our whole team. I'm joined at the table by Vince Burke, the Director of Development at Matten, and in the audience is Brian Morris, Director of Entitlements, and Mick Risley, Development Coordinator. We also have representatives of VICA, Project Engineer, and Bignell Watkins Hosser, Project Architect. I also want to thank Ms. Seiden and Mr. Mann and wish Mr. Schlichting a good retirement for all his great work in the city. Very briefly, what you see in the white outline is the overall property. It's about 45-acre site located between Montgomery Village Avenue to the south and Watkins Mill Road to the north. This site was originally developed by IBM for their campus and then later occupied by Lockheed Martin and Leidos, and then purchased by Matten in 2018, and they have been working on comprehensively redeveloping the site. So since Matten acquired the site, it's gone through the multi-tiered review process, the MXD zone. As Ms. Seiden mentioned, that started out with a sketch plan in 2019 that approved a maximum of 650,000 square feet of commercial development on 2 overall blocks. That sketch plan was then first implemented through the approval of a Phase 1 schematic development plan in 2019. The area of that schematic development plan covered approximately 90% of the property area, and that schematic development plan, again, approved in 2019 and then implemented through 3 separate site plans. The first was in July 2021 for 2 flex buildings, a linear park along the Maryland 355 frontage. It's about 1,400 feet long, about 2 acres in area, and also included an 8-foot wide pedestrian path, plantings and seating, also open spaces and other amenities. And then in October 2021, that same year, a site plan was approved for the Chick-fil-A here on the corner. And then a little over a year later, in August 2022, a site plan was approved for the Sheetz Retail and Automobile Filling Station. What we're here for tonight is what we're calling the Phase 2 schematic development plan for Parcel S. It's approximately a 2-acre site, and Matten is proposing approximately 14,750 square feet of retail in 2 buildings, 715 Progress Way and 725 Progress Way. The remaining 3 acres of the site on Parcel Q, which is roughly this area here, that area will be subject to a future schematic development plan application. So with that brief introduction, I will turn it over to Mr. Burke.
Good evening. Great to be back here before you under a new banner. Wasn't sure if I get the opportunity, so I too was going to honor Mr. Schlichting, but we'll figure that out later. And just thank the staff for their always collaborative and helpful approach in getting us here today to kind of fill in the next piece of the puzzle for this overall plan here just by way of a project update, I'm sure that you all read about the lease that we have for the full building on the south side of the site to AstraZeneca, which is, I think, what you all had envisioned. So that's a great start. We do have another lease in the northern of the two flex buildings that we cannot announce yet, but and some more tenants interested that we think will round out what should be all of the uses that were contemplated in the master plan in the zone here. This image that we're looking at, we actually use in speaking with tenants, and people usually get excited when we describe the retail amenities out front. Sheetz and Chick-fil-A are big crowd pleasers, and we are hoping to follow suit here with these two buildings. We can walk through, Phil, if you want to just go to the more detailed image. So this illustrative plan shows the massing of the site. We'll go through the details as we get through, but I can walk through some of it. We've worked with VICA and Bignell Watkins to, again, try and fulfill the goals in the master plan. Here we have the table setting of the linear park out front, and then continued that pedestrian access through and around the site, also able to be used by cyclists. We have the two access points off Progress Way, and then the interconnectivity for vehicles between the two sites. The building massings here, for Lot 7 and Lot 8, are built for the building lot limits. These are not be the ultimate size of the buildings that depend on the tenant execution. Lot 7, we have a multi-tenant retail shops building plan for just over 10,000 feet, and then the remainder of the available retail square footage, or to keep in with the maximum, is shown for Lot 8, although those buildings usually end up smaller, which could create some latitude for site layout at final site plan. I don't think we have anything else there. There are two drive-throughs associated with this plan. Again, that's at STP. We're trying to create the maximum flexibility and attractiveness and marketing this to retail tenants. As we discussed in my time here before you, the high-quality tenants that we're looking to pursue really like that option, particularly in a post-COVID world. The one, again, would be a single-tenant building with the drive-through around, and the drive-through would service an end cap user, and that one's likely to have a mix of use of tenants, not just restaurant, but other service and professional service and just general retail. Move on. So again, we worked with our team and staff to make sure that we were meeting or exceeding the goals of the drive-through best practices. And this exhibit just walks through that step by step. Shows the the outdoor seating option in between the two buildings, and we can get into, if you want to go to the next slide. So this shows again the drive-through configurations. We wanted to make sure that we really had generous stacking available for those. Meeting the guidelines, again, for that quick serve tenant. This is probably well in excess of what will be needed, because those tenants don't have the same demand as, say, Chick-fil-A does to the south, or a single user with a more robust drive-through use would, in what we're envisioning for the building closer to Bunsen Place. I don't think I have anything else there. You can move forward. These are the conceptual elevations developed by Bignell Watkins, again, designed with the design guidelines in mind, four-sided architecture, knowing that these buildings are up on 355 and will have a presence. There's designed with some relief in step backs, protrusions from the facades there, with the hard canopies, some variability in the roof line there as well, and the rear of the building that faces the linear park designed to look like a front as well, with a similar treatment. Some variability in the brick design there and detailing, and again those awnings to make it look like the front of the building. This is just another image showing, if we walk through the various buildings, facades. There. So this is a snapshot of the, or illustration of the outdoor seating, which could be shared between the buildings. We intentionally made it generous to break up between the drive-throughs there. The space that you see in the foreground here is about 2,600 square feet. In my mind, when I think about a retail shop, this like a smaller shop, they're around 1,400 square feet, so this is nearly double the size. And then the portion that connects to the linear park in the front is another 2,200 square feet. You'll see there, separating the drive-through, the metallic screen wall. That doesn't appear this way, but our intent is that that would be perforated so that it creates a barrier between the drive aisle, but you can see through it. And when activated with the pedestrians, that should serve as a traffic calming measure as well, in addition to the raised crosswalks across the drive aisles there. Let me see if I think that's it. Keep going. Oh, I would say, in terms of, we can look at this in the overall, we look at this piece as the overall site amenity network that we have here. There's a couple areas that you guys are already familiar with associated with the flex buildings. One large area on the north side of the site, a smaller area in the southeast corner that is near the forest retention area there, the linear park, and the public art feature up on the corner, all which have either this table seating for dining or bench seating throughout. This space here, as designed, can accommodate around 30 people seated at once. Of course, again, the final details of that will be fleshed out at site plan. This is just another view of that space. We put a lot of thought into it with our team. If you want to go actually to the resource slides, the last two in the pack. So go one more back. This shows the overall site. Shows a couple of the areas that we were talking about. That the northern piece, you can't see the southern corner there, and the linear park up front. You can go one more to the last slide, and then these are what's been built to date. So we'll follow on that theme, and I will say, having switched from more residential and retail development specifically to more of this flex development with Matten, these buildings are the nicest that I've seen in my travels in the 2 years I've spent there. So both from the facade architecture, the retail amenities, adding that walkability versus just only vehicular design, and the linear park across the front. So we're happy with how it's turned out, and hopefully tenants will continue to find it to be attractive as well. I think that's all I have for now.
All right, thank you very much for the presentation, and I'm glad to hear that you guys are close with leasing out that second flex building. That's great news.
Yes, indeed.
So I'm going to congratulate you there, and I'm actually going to hand it over to the Planning Commission first.
Ooh, we got a new pattern started here.
Yeah, well, it worked out great at the last public hearing. So,
Okay.
So John, go ahead, take it away.
Well, what if I want to defer to one of the other commissioners?
You're welcome to. I'm leaving
will
that
start.
in your hands.
I have a couple questions. Sorry, I don't mean to be flip, but the outdoor seating scheme, interesting concept. Who would ultimately own and maintain and sort of monitor it in the course of?
Matten would.
Okay. So over the course of a business day, who's out there picking up trash, making sure?
Well, the tenants will have their own, responsibility for that, but
Okay.
Matten pays great attention to detail for both landscaping and overall presentation cleanliness of our sites.
So
I think
remain
if
a
you
common-
go out there now,
Okay.
both the tenants will be doing their own kind of trash service, but then Matten will have its porter services cover that as well.
Great. Earlier on in some of the site planning for the earlier phases, we were looking at you had some constraints on access from the linear park for pedestrian walkways into the Chick-fil-A and the Sheetz site. There were some interesting kind of changes in the way the topo worked there. Does it link up directly to these sites now, or is there still sort of an issue with topo and?
There is topo, which actually works in our favor, we think, in terms of creating the rear of the building looking more like a front. There's about a 10-foot grade change, plus you have all those street trees, which you see at the FedEx site now are mature. It really does a good job of screening it. So we think we think, you'll be able to, it'll have enough of a presence.
No, I'm looking for connections up.
Well,
Connections.
so that topography works, which I just forgot to include that note. But yes, this sidewalk is designed to connect right into the linear park there.
Mr. Chair, if you look at the image on the screen, you can see this is the linear park here and the shared use path, and there is a direct connection.
Comes down between them, good.
Yep.
Okay. And the last thing, it's sort of a comment and a question is, have you looked at what the macro sense of place is for all these? So now that you've filled in sort of the gap in the middle, that things like the walkways and the site amenities and all of that does tie everything together now across that whole section in a way that kind of means something when you drive onto the site or walk onto the site.
For sure. I mean, I think the majority of that access is presented up front through the linear park and the.
Fair enough, yeah.
And so it is porous from the 355 that you can come in as a consumer for this retail, and then it's connected to the maximum extent possible from the flex buildings themselves, keeping in mind safe circulation relative to any trucking or vehicular traffic there. So where possible, we have the sidewalk network and the crosswalk in place, and this would continue that. The two pieces, one on the north side and one on the southeast corner, really serve the flex employment base more so. Of course, they're welcome to eat here or at the Chick-fil-A area as well, but those ones, people won't probably permeate into the site and use those if they're just
Right.
using
I think what
retail.
we'll look at is, certainly at site plan, is that whatever deficiencies there are now, and there may not be any, but that there is another look at how everything is completely knit together for a safe and pleasant access between all the buildings and through that site at a pedestrian scale.
The bones were there, and we were thoughtful with staff and how we kind of
Okay.
knitted that together, and so we'll welcome any comment that shows how to improve that, but I think that we've addressed that.
Yeah, not just piggyback on one thing Mr. Burke said. There are design guidelines that apply to the site, and the design that you see here, of course, right now we're at the schematic development plan phase, but the design guidelines were really thought in mind when the concepts were created for this site. If you look, these are what's being proposed, and if you look at what's already been built, there is good consistency and conformity and compatibility with that. So we do think that there's it does come across and read as one unified development. And that's also accomplished with signage as well.
Oh, don't say that.
Oh, Phil, there is a resource slide showing that pedestrian connectivity. Yeah, we prepared for this and I forgot, sorry.
Oh, right. So again, to answer your question, this is the linear park and this is the trail through the linear park. And there's a direct connection from that trail onto the site through the seating area.
Good. All right, thank you. Anybody else?
My one and only question, is more point of clarification, just so we make sure we all understand. You've got what's on the screen now showing, 2 drive-throughs right there. Is the intent that these are going to be built as they're tenanted? Are you building these on spec, assuming you might get a drive-through tenant? I guess what I'm trying to get around is, what is the likelihood that you have a drive-through built without a tenant using that drive-through?
We're likely to be, after this stage, we already have some interest. We'll be able to really market in earnest and be able to answer that question at site plan. But I would see, again, this is a useful marketing tool, but we're not going to front the cost for the drive-through if we don't need it. If we're able to lease the shops building to tenants that don't need drive-throughs, we're not going to just add that optionality
When we get
in
to
there.
final site plan, we may or may not see 2 drive-throughs.
Correct.
Right, that's exactly right.
Okay, Jim, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the presentation. I want to kind of piggyback on what Chairman Bauer was talking about with regards to the pedestrian network, and more specifically, I want to focus on the traffic that would be coming from the flex buildings. And you have a connection between Lot 7 and 8 right in front of the exit of the one drive-through. I'm just concerned that that creates a conflict point. So I'm wondering, is it a necessity to connect the two lots for vehicular traffic, or can you extend that park all the way through so that you have a safe passage there?
Just to clarify, you're talking about kind of closing off the interparcel connection between Lot 7 and Lot
Yes.
8 to kind of create a direct connection all the way through from the linear park to Progress Way without having that interparcel connection.
I mean, we like the interconnectivity of it. It helps circulation within the site, and it was, staff had requested that connection point as well. We think between the kind of embellishment to the landscaping, the raised crosswalk, and, you know, hopefully if we're successful and it's activated with diners and pedestrians, that, you know, that helps to calm that traffic as well. It's not a high-speed, you know, area, so we think it's a good design, and that staff was pleased with it. So we can look at it again, but we think it functions well.
Right. The only concern I have is a lot of times when people are picking up their food from a drive-through, they're distracted as they're moving forward, and you've got a connection crossing, and then you've got a connection just to the right. So it creates some conflict points. I'm not saying it's a deal breaker, but it's definitely something that I think that we should all look at. That was the only question I had. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other questions?
I'm sorry, I just want to follow up on that. I do believe, is it 9 feet? The spacing from here to here? 9, 10?
Car length.
Yeah, I believe if you're talking about the visibility from this drive-through to crosswalk here, this is about one car length, about 9 feet. So we did consider that issue specifically, and we do believe that there's adequate sight distance from a car that would be here to ensure pedestrian safety here. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add on that point, but it's something that was considered.
Are you referring to the?
Wait, if you're going to speak, you need to be on the microphone.
You can come, you can
Come
over
on,
here.
come on up.
Okay, sorry.
They just can't pick it up.
Are you referring to the crosswalk going the opposite direction now?
So what we're looking at on the screen right now, so you have the one crosswalk between the right in front of the drive-thru where the cursor is right now. Thank you.
Yeah.
So that was number one.
Yeah.
But the one that I'm most concerned of is the one down going to the lower right.
Yes.
Yes.
So the thought there is that's
This one?
raised as well. You can't see it there per se, but if you go to the other one, it is a raised crosswalk, so that is to provide further pedestrian safety.
Okay. That helps.
And
Thank you.
that will slow the cars as well.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right. Well, I want to open it up for the public. This is a public hearing, and if there's anybody from the public who'd like to testify in this, raise your hand. Is there anybody in the room who wants to testify in this? Not seeing anybody in the room. Let me just go to Zoom. If you are on Zoom and would like to testify on this public hearing topic, please use the raise hand button, and I will call on you. Not seeing any hands go up. Okay. And I don't suppose, I'm going to ask anyway, I don't suppose you guys feel like divulging what sort of tenants we might expect in these two buildings, correct?
It's premature. We can't speak to that yet. We have other folks in the building looking to potentially scoop them away from us. But they, as you might imagine, with this presence and the vehicle traffic on 355, you kind of, and with this level of kind of architecture and the drive-through, you can really do a good job of securing high quality tenants. As we've shown with Chick-fil-A Sheets, we don't anticipate any problem with leasing it.
Great. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I think Matt will confirm I'm just as interested as you are in who those tenants will be.
Appreciate that. Obviously, it won't factor into whether the approval here.
One observation, though, it's interesting that they've got two site plan, SDP level plans that show a viable way to integrate drive-throughs in a way that keeps pedestrians safe, follows a lot of the guidelines our staff has been researching over the years, and ultimately creates, even though the whole development can't be arguably walkable because it's at a scale that's a little different than what a walkable community looks like, It very well integrates the two, I think, and in a way that makes drive-throughs not the bad guy, right? I mean, it's something that can really support a segment of business. I think that's good for the city that we're showing a way to do that.
Well,
So,
Greg got to use his best practice chart.
yeah.
Well, I was involved in an approval when they created that best practice site, so I knew that there was that sensitivity and that we had to meet that bar, and appreciate the kind words, because there has been a lot of thought put into it.
I mean, we won't know till final site plan if it's really good or it's well done, but it appears to be a really good start at something that I think a few years ago we thought was unsolvable, and it's good to see that there's a way to make this viable, which then leads to more viability in our business community. So I think that's something to be encouraged by.
Well said.
Appreciate it.
The topology really works in its favor there, particularly with the hill. I think that's a great way to track the drive-throughs in there.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to staff recommendations.
Did you want to actually make a staff recommendation first, or shall I just go to the written recommendation?
I just have the recommendation of closing the
I
record.
got it,
but
okay.
You can do that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission hold their record open until 5 p.m. on July 31st, 2024, with our recommendation tentatively scheduled for our meeting on August 7th, 2024. Is there a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
It's moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Our recommendations that we hold our record open until 5 p.m. are being the mayor and council on 5 p.m. on August 14, with anticipated policy discussion and final action on September 3rd. What is the pleasure of the council?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I'll let Leah sort that out in a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. K carries 4-0. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, appreciate the opportunity. Good to be back.
Good to have you back.
Please-
Commissioners, thank you.
Please congratulate John for us.
Okay, we are going to, from the mayor and city council, and we're going to start with Councilmember Neil Harris.
All right, thank you, Mayor. So we had a busy couple of weeks here. First of all, I'd like to congratulate staff on a wonderful summer fest. It was a little on the warm side at the beginning, but it became much more pleasant as the evening wore on, and the storm held off, thank goodness. The music was great, the food trucks were great. I got there early enough I didn't have to wait in a huge line, but everybody seemed happy. Another fine event. It was great to see so many people in our community and our surrounding neighbors have such a good time. And the fireworks, as always, were truly spectacular.
Yeah.
My wife claims she could see them from the top floor of our house. I don't know how that was possible geographically, but at least she saw the reflection of the fireworks off other buildings or something like that. During the last week, I think everyone who was up at the dais and many others from the city staff attended the annual Maryland Municipal League Conference. We had, as usual, a great showing, and I'd like to be able to congratulate publicly our mayor on being elected to the board of directors of the MML.
Thank you.
I think we have, is Carolyn still in the room?
No.
No, Carolyn left, but she's the head of the president or chairman or some such of the Parks and Recreation group of the MML as well. So we're very well represented, and we had a chance to really hobnob with the Rockville contingent who was there in force as well, and show them how it's done properly. So good camaraderie for all. I'd also like to shout out to our former council colleague and now state delegate Ryan Spiegel, who moderated a session called Budgets and Bonds Mastering the State's Financial Framework, which was not nearly as dry as I just made it sound. It was a panel of state delegates and senators and members of the administration that really did a great job at focusing everybody on exactly what to do in order to get money for the municipalities from the state. So that was a great session, and overall a great conference. And I'll leave it at that for now. And congratulate John Schlichting on his tenure with the city, and I'm sorry we didn't get to see him say farewell this evening.
I'm sure we'll have our chance at some
Well,
point.
I will, he missed out on the recognition, but I'll try to recognize him when I see him in the neighborhood.
There you go. Thanks, Neil. We'll go to Rob.
Thanks, Mayor. Ditto on all that. Special ditto on Summerfest. Thanks for ordering the wonderful weather this year as opposed to last year.
The last 2 years.
Yeah, it was a spectacular evening, and kudos to everyone involved for executing it nearly flawlessly. Yeah, John's avoiding us, so we'll have to find him, hunt him down, and congratulate him.
Thank you, Rob. We'll go to Jim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to echo everybody's comments. Summerfest was a huge success. I mean, if you weren't there, thousands, if not tens of thousands. I mean, I don't know what the official count was, but it was impressive. And, you know, we had more food trucks, and I think we had more people because the lines were incredible. I think my brother stood in line for maybe an hour to get some funnel cake for his kids.
Wow.
So that was...
He wanted that funnel cake.
when a 5-year-old wants funnel cake, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Councilmember Henderson and I had along with the mayor, had the opportunity to attend the Gaithersburg Germantown Chamber of Commerce Public Safety Awards. This is an annual event that recognizes our heroes and our first responders, and I've had the opportunity to attend this each year that I've been on the council, and it is always one of the things I make sure that I get to. It's an early morning breakfast. This year, among the many public servants that were awarded, were our own Officer Azkayan for his efforts in saving the life of Sergeant Kep. And I had the opportunity to meet him and shake his hand in person. And then also we honored Montgomery County's retired Chief of Police, Marcus Jones, which, as he pointed out, he is a former Gaithersburg resident, former Saybrook resident in my neighborhood. I've had the chance to get to talk to him a number of times over the years, and I know.
By the way, yeah, we're going to do a proclamation for him in 2 weeks.
Fantastic.
If he shows up.
Him and John. Yeah, so just a great event, and I wasn't able to stay to the very end because of work, but you know, congratulations to everybody who was recognized at that event, and thank you to the Chamber for continuing to recognize our community heroes for putting their lives and their safety at risk to keep us safe. During MML, I continued my classes for getting the Academy for Excellence in Local Governance certificate. Pleased to say I got my required classes done this conference, so I just need to do a couple more. I think it's 3 or 4 elective classes, but I went through classes on municipal budgeting, ethics, effective meetings, disaster and catastrophic event planning, and there was an interesting session on artificial intelligence and the role that it may play in municipal government. So it was a great event. I will echo the comments about all of the camaraderie with our colleagues from Rockville. We had a great time. We also got to say hello to the governor, the lieutenant governor, the comptroller, Delegate Spiegel, some other senators and other legislators there. And it was Jamil's first, and I'll let you talk about your first experience at MML. And the last thing I want to say is, and I know the mayor's going to say something, but just since this is the last council meeting here in this chamber, it is not lost on me the honor that it is that I get to sit in this chair, and thinking about some of the people that have sat in this chair, some of whom, or many of whom, are no longer with us. You know, Henry Marafa sat in this chair. Other people that have served this community have sat in this chair. So to be amongst you all, to be the last group to sit in these chairs before we go to the next council chambers is meaningful to me, and I appreciate it every day. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Jim. We'll go to Jamil.
Excellent. So incorporate by reference all the wonderful things my colleagues have said. MML was great. A lot of drinking from my firehouse as a newly elected person. The one, I think, event, just to bring to the public's attention, I attended the Montgomery County Police drone as a first responder meeting with Councilmember Henderson last week. They're going to add that service to Gaithersburg, Montgomery Village, in Germantown within the next 2 weeks. So that should be going live shortly. And it stems from a program that started in Silver Spring and Wheaton. And they've done a little close to 1,000 calls for service since it's been up and running. So information is available at the MCPD website, but looking forward to seeing the program come on.
It's a very cool program,
Yeah.
actually. I want to thank everyone for the recognition for being elected to the state board. It's an honor and going to serve with some great people. I want to echo everyone's comments about the Public Safety Awards. About Summerfest was amazing as always. It's one of the proud moments every single year for our community. I thought it was great. Had a great time, and got to bring my granddaughter on stage, which was a big kick for me, and for her. She went for the microphone, and it was awesome. Yeah, she takes after me. As Jim mentioned, this is the last meeting in this council chamber. Starting next week, we're going to move across the street to our new council chamber at 16 South Summit, and I just want to note that I've been in this room 17 years. A lot of amazing things have happened here. Many, many important people in the history of our city have sat in this room, people for whom streets and parks and facilities have been named. Many, many important matters were decided in here, including approvals for neighborhoods like Crown and Spectrum and Hidden Creek, Parklands, Kentlands, Lakelands, lots of others. Many cherished traditions were carried on in this chamber. I feel like we have set a standard for local governance in this chamber. Fun fact, we have been broadcasting our meetings live. I was just told by Chris Clifford before the meeting. We've been broadcasting our meetings live here since the year 1996.
Wow.
But the room was used long before then as the council chamber. And so next week we begin our new era of our new council chamber, and we hope to bring all the great traditions while working on the next phase of important projects for the city. And I think it's kind of fitting that our first meeting at the new chamber will be a work session on the Lake Forest Mall redevelopment. So we are literally talking about the next phase of important projects for the city. It's my hope that we will always treasure the memories that were made in this room and appreciate the good and the great things that were done in here for the city of Gaithersburg. So, and with that, I think it's kind of appropriate for me to jump into the announcement for next week's session, which we will have a work session, as I mentioned, on the schematic development plan for the Lake Forest property. It'll be 7:30 p.m. It will be at the city's new council chamber, 16 South Summit Avenue. Of course, you can still participate via Zoom if you want, the same way. And the next regular meeting will be held also there. From now on, it's there. I'm not going to say it anymore. That will be on Monday, July 15th. So with that, I'll go from the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say that we've actually had 3 straight years of terrible weather for Summerfest. Joining the city during COVID meant no Summerfest in 2020. In 2021, we had what I would call sad fireworks. It rained, it thunderstormed the entire day.
Yes.
We had to delay the fireworks, and then eventually we had to set them off without any participation at all. Those were very sad fireworks. Yeah.
Yes.
And then my 3rd year was last year, and that was an eventful, rainy event, but we made it through somehow. And so this was my first real Summerfest with no weather interruptions.
Except we missed the afterglow.
Thank you, Darnell.
Yes, I brought that.
Okay.
Other than that.
with some weather.
But we got through the
interruptions,
flagship part.
We made it through the flagship part.
You're welcome.
Okay.
It's obviously Darnell, yes.
Clearly. I was beginning to think it was me for a while, that the rain was coming, but it was a wonderful event. I had family visiting from Ohio, and for the second year, they had a great time and asked why we don't do it all the time, and can they come every weekend?
Expensive.
Those were no's, by the way. That's hard no's for that. Because I'm the city manager, we can't spend that kind of money every weekend. But it was absolutely worth it. It was just a beautiful sight to behold of our community coming out in community. The fact that we can have these kinds of events, Darnell and I talked about this, we're from very urban environments where the family-friendly, calm nature of these kinds of events don't always hold up, so I don't take it for granted that our community can come together and celebrate in this way and have a great time. So kudos to our amazing team from GPD to Public Works and of course Parks, Recreation and Culture for pulling off this incredible event every year, and we thank them for their service.
Yes, we do. Thank you. Okay, we're going to go to economic development update. Tom Lonergan-Seeger.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and everybody. Just one item for you tonight. As we enter the second half of 2024, I wanted to bring you up to speed very quickly on some of the economic indicators that we in economic development are following. Through our subscription with CoStar, Sharon and I track the status of around 8.5 million square feet of office and flex inventory here in Gaithersburg. Unsurprisingly, the local commercial real estate market reflects the permanent changes caused in the workplace by COVID. That impact is best seen in the demand for office space, which has been pretty well reported, and that's reflected by the sector's vacancy rate and total space available for lease. 2023 ended the year with a vacancy rate just under 13% of 12.9. Second quarter of this year saw that drop marginally to 12.8%. As of now, Gaithersburg has more than 1.4 million square feet of office space available. City is outperforming the county writ large, though, where the office vacancy rate hit 19.4% with more than 17 million square feet available in the county. Flex space, which is those 1- and 2-story buildings occupied by a variety of tenants, including biotechs and light industrial uses, saw its vacancy rate hold steady at about 25%. But approximately 200,000 of the 300,000 square feet of vacant space in this category is found in one building, 750 Progress Way, which was referenced by the applicant prior, the recently completed Matin facility.
And it's about to not be vacant.
There is strong speculation that way, and if we were to take that 200,000 square feet off the market, the vacancy rate would drop to 4.6%.
That's a big difference.
Big difference.
Is Sodexo impacting any of that, or is that their departure?
No, that is not impacting that yet. It wouldn't be reflected in these numbers yet. The retail sector does continue, and I think most of that was in Rockville.
It's not flex space either, is it?
No, I'm talking about the office numbers of 12.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, there is still a sublease there. I can double check and see if there's been any backfill in there yet. The retail sector does continue to recover despite predictions from only a few years ago that online shopping would decimate this property type. Let's back out the buildings at Lake Forest, and the city's retail vacancy rate drops to 1.9% compared to the county's rate of 5.7%. Low retail vacancy isn't unique to our area. It is a nationwide trend driven by a shortage of retail space, and that's the result of more than a decade of very limited retail construction and today's interest rates and high construction costs. As of April, the most recent month for which we have data, Gaithersburg's unemployment rate stood at 2.6%, slightly higher than the countywide average of 2.4%, but slightly lower than the 2.7% statewide average. In short, we continue to outperform nearby jurisdictions, and we're poised to weather market forces pretty well. That's all I got.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, next we're going to move to ordinances, resolutions, regulations, and I don't know why my screen just went off. I'm going to invite Mary Falig from G Park to come up along with Shelley Williams from our Cultural Events and Services Division. Come on up.
Hi.
Hi, welcome.
Thanks. For lots of reasons, I'd like to introduce and welcome Tracy Bruno up to the podium as well.
Come on up, Tracy.
Oh, I don't need to come up. I get to sit down. Because this is one of the reasons why we're asking for this resolution. So, the Gaithersburg Parks, Arts, and Recreation Corporation, you all know as G-Park, wishes to amend its bylaws in order to provide consistent terminology throughout the document and extend the term limits from 2 to 3, and to provide a board member emeritus position among with the officers. The purpose of these amendments is to ensure that G-Park can continue to support the city's parks, arts, and recreation initiatives. So that's the request.
That is a very concise presentation.
Love it.
Appreciate it. And I looked over the bylaws changes. It all looks fine to me. Any questions or comments?
Just a process question. I know G-Park's like a separate entity, but captive to the city or associated with the city. Does this go through like, do you have your own legal review, or like who reviews it just to make sure that there's nothing in these
The
changes?
city attorney.
City attorney's
Eric
office
reviewed
reviews.
it.
Okay.
Eric Perla.
Perfect.
Well, with that, do you want to move the resolution?
We'd love to move the resolution.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Carries 4-0.
Great, thank you all.
Thank you all very much. Next, let's see what we have here. Brittany Marinello. We're going to talk about CDBG funded homeowner repair program.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Brittany Marinello, the Housing and Community Development Division Manager. This item is requesting approval of a resolution authorizing the city manager to amend the existing contract to increase the budget for the CDBG funded homeowner repair program. Just a little background to give you a sense of why we're requesting this. Since the city's CDBG allocation has increased with this new fiscal year, I'm requesting that the contractual amount for this program be increased to $186,755. This amount incorporates 33% of the annual CDBG allocation with an additional $12,000 of program income from federal program year 2023. The homeowner repair program officially began accepting applications in December of 2023, and by the end of fiscal year 24, just yesterday, 23 homes have been repaired, even though their goal was just 20 homes. Though that seems like a good exceeding expectations, our partner has identified that there are some needs that we need to address further with more funding, and that is that they want to focus more on the quality of the work rather than the quantity, meaning that though they're repairing homes and their HVAC systems and their kitchens, a lot of people have more severe issues, more ADA compliance issues in their bathrooms that they want to address. So with this additional funding, though they're going to only focus on 15 homes for this fiscal year, the hope is that they can expand their repairs to just more than one repair, but fix it in a holistic way to make the home more sustainable. So with that, with the meeting of the high demand and with the increase in cost as well, as we know inflation and contractors cost more money, we are requesting that the contract be increased to $186,755,000.
Thank you for that. So, question: without this $186,000, everything is. This program is funded through CDBG, but this $186,000 is coming from city funds.
So no,
It's also coming from CDBG.
Yeah, all CDBG, and that program income basically is someone who's paid back a GALP loan, and it must be reprogrammed back to a CDBG funded program. So that $12,000 is just basically somebody's home loan that they have paid back to the city.
I see. Okay. Questions, comments?
So there was, I think, discussion at the time that we originally approved the CDBG that they had to meet certain ratios, and we were really close to the line, I think, on like certain types of funding that were, does this alter that math, or?
No, I believe you're referring to the public service cap and different type of requirements depending on the program. This particular program is not a public service program. It is strictly a home repair program. So there is no limit to how much we can fund it. but because we only have a GALP, meaning the down payment assistance program, and the homeowner repair program, with the additional public service, which is a rental assistance, and our basically our other public services just for cost of salaries for those who are helping with emergency assistance, we split it up as 1/3 even, so 33% allocated to this program.
I'm impressed you had any idea what I was talking about.
I live in CDBG world.
Jim?
Sure. I just want to say that, this program is such an important program. I was looking up the stats, like 4 in 10 adults can't pay an unexpected $400 bill. So programs like this are incredibly important to help people keep their homes, in proper order. So I love the fact that we're actually getting more funding, that we can do more with it. So just wanted to put that on the record. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Would you like to move the resolution?
Oh, sure. I will move the resolution.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Carries 4-0. Thank you very much, Brittany.
Thank you.
Next, we have policy discussion. I'm going to invite Frank Johnson, stepping in for Eric Perla this evening. Welcome, Frank.
Good evening, and actually as I start, it occurs to me that this being the last meeting in the room, this is your last presentation in this room as well. So hopefully I will make it worth the wait for as long as you've been meeting here. But yes, I'm here to introduce the policy discussion. This is on the ordinance to amend Chapter 2 of the City Code entitled Administration, essentially to amend Section 2.6 to carve out application of a specific code section of the County Code, Section 3148, and that's leaving the rest of County Code, Chapter 31 on motor vehicles and traffic in place, but this simply provides that the city no longer falls under the mandates of Section 3148. Now that would not leave the city without a parking program, because we have been and continue to operate under Section 17A of the City Code, which remains in place. There has been no change there, but it provides the option to make some changes to work with the parking program that has been proposed. And this ordinance was introduced on May 6, 2024 after a presentation by the ad hoc permit parking committee earlier. There was a public hearing on June 3rd, 2024. The record remained open for 10 days thereafter. And tonight is the targeted date for final discussion. And again, this doesn't remove the city's current ordinance. It just carves out application of Section 3148 of the County Code. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Frank. This is policy discussion. If I had a vote, I would vote to support it, but I do not, so I'm interested to hear.
Controversial position.
I'm interested to hear how the council would opine.
I have a vote, so I will vote to support this change.
Rob Wood?
Ditto. What is the status of the parking regulations?
The exact status is that what I can tell you is that they're under discussion. I do know that they're under fairly intense, that Eric has been working on that. I think I would look to him to give you a little bit more detail on exactly where it is at this point, but the plan was, I believe, within the year, and not the year starting earlier this year, to bring forward an actual program. So this was one of the first steps that needed to happen, was to open up that possibility.
And just for anybody watching, Eric's not here. He would have been here, but he had, subject to a flight cancellation, caused him to miss the meeting tonight. So, any other questions, comments?
Just for layman's term, because you spelled it out very nicely and technically, but there's no gap in enforcement ability.
Correct.
Or capability for the city to, properly operate its parking program between when we exit the county and finalize those regulations and go live. We still have our complement of tools to do what we need to do.
Yes, we operate right now under Section 17A of the City Code. That remains in place, no changes there. all this does is give the city options for changes under a new parking permit program.
Perfect. Jim?
This is basically enabling legislation. It
Mhm.
removes the
Yeah.
requirement for us to follow the council
Exactly.
so that we can put this in. So I'm 100% in favor.
Okay, would you want to move the ordinance?
I will so move the ordinance.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Carries 4-0. Thank you very much, Frank.
Thank you and good night.
And
To everybody who's met in this room.
Let's give Frank an applause.
thank you. Okay, next is, as we wrap up this meeting, next is from the city attorney. Anything from you, Darnell?
Only that our Supreme Court of the United States has been very active, so take a look at all the opinions in the last few days. That's it. Thank you.
Got to leave us with that one. Okay.
We were hoping you would explain them all to us.
In another meeting.
Anything from any other staff? Okay, not seeing anything. Then I will remind everybody to join us for our joint work session next week on Lake Forest Mall redevelopment project, and that will be in our new council chamber, 16 South Summit Avenue. We're looking forward to it, and and happy 4th. I feel like we did Summerfest and we did our fireworks here in the city, and I almost forgot that wasn't actually the 4th of July. So happy 4th, everyone. Until next time, let's do great things, Gaithersburg. We are adjourned.